Good afternoon. My name is Bridget, and in this presentation, I will be identifying the factors that have been halting Australia from its electric vehicle uptake and analyse how economic policy surrounding EVs can be used to mitigate the current climate crisis. For over a century now, the promise of electric vehicles has remained parked just around the corner. Reversing back to 1911, the New York Times dubbed electric vehicles as the ideal solution because they are cleaner and quieter and much more economical. Hit the accelerator to 2022, 111 years after electric vehicles were declared the next big thing, and they account for merely 2% of all new vehicles sold in Australia. So despite the growth of electric vehicle sales, Australia still sits significantly behind the rest of the world when it comes to EV adoption. Can we expect to see a change anytime soon? So now we will dive into the economics behind the problem. Exhaust emissions are commonly cited as a negative externality of the transportation sector. And as you can see in the graph, this negative externality is one of the greatest inputs to greenhouse gas GHG emissions, accounting for roughly 1/4 of the EU's total CO2 emissions in 2019, of which 71.7% came from road transportation alone, and it's only rising. Hence, this negative externality is a social cost borne by society as a whole. It is a sum of costs of resources used by consumers who drive non-electric vehicles, which are private costs, and the value of the decrease in society's welfare because of the costs imposed by driving non-electric vehicles on other consumers who may not be directly involved, which are public costs. And private costs differ from the social costs by the value of the damage caused by the externality, which can be seen in Figure 1. So looking at this graph, when individuals neglect the externality of the transportation sector, they would choose how much they're willing to pollute so that they can benefit, in the case of no regulation, from the existence of pollution. So we see this in Figure 1 at the market equilibrium where supply meets demand. But however, because of the negative externality, the cost to society of everyone driving non-EVs, which are emitting GHG, is higher than the private costs. So if all individuals that drive non-electric vehicles were to entirely pay the marginal social costs, inclusive of all external emissions costs, then the competitive marginal private cost curve would shift upwards towards the marginal social cost curve, and the externality would be internalized. At this socially optimal level, the market price for non-electric vehicles will be greater and the quantity sold will be less. Figure 1 indicates that at the socially optimal level, the reductions in air pollution are accompanied by decreases in the supply of the activity driving non-electric vehicles that is contributing to emissions. So why have there been so few electric vehicles in Australia? In 2021, we saw that 6.6 million new electric vehicles were registered worldwide, but of these, only 0.1% were accounted for by Australia. While many of the world's developed nations are well on track to electrifying their roads, Australia has been alarmingly slow on this uptake. We've even seen policies that disincentivize making the switch to electric vehicles. Other disincentivizing factors include Australia's comparatively lower petrol and diesel costs by global standards, our lack of fuel efficiency standards, and concerns surrounding vehicle range. However, with fuel prices being more volatile lately due to lack of supply and the war in Ukraine, it is expected that consumers will prioritise fuel efficiency and be more interested in electric vehicles going into the future. So since the market is currently inefficient due to the negative externality of vehicle emissions, society will benefit from government intervention, incentivising the abatement of these emissions. But unfortunately, there has been a severe lack of federal EV policy in Australia, which has caused the country to fall behind. And in recent years, state governments have tried to step in to help. Some incentives are shown in the table. And notably, ACT offers the highest number of subsidies, correlating with its higher rate of electric vehicles per 10,000 vehicle sales. So looking at this graph to further explain subsidies, the financial incentive recommended a subsidy is a wealth transfer from society to consumers, aimed at reducing costs for consumers, acting as an opportunity cost for emissions to increase the market uptake for electric vehicles despite their currently high prices. So it works by internalizing the external benefits of electric vehicles, which you can see is illustrated in the graph, correcting the market failure of the EV market. The amount subsidized per car is represented by the vertical height of the yellow highlighting, with the total cost of the subsidy to the government represented by the total area of the yellow highlighting. So the subsidy acts by lowering production costs for firms and leading to lower EV prices and increased demand. It is apparent that CO2 emissions need to be drastically reduced in line with Paris's agreement to limit global warming, and there's a wide consensus that this can only be achieved with the widespread electric vehicle uptake. So it is expected that Australia will increase its policies in coming years. Let's help drive forward this important change. Thank you.